Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of 2 plus 2 equals 5. It's the place where the rules are optional, the maths rarely adds up, and the questions matter more than the answers. What is 2 plus 2 equals 5? Well, in a world where the math doesn't always math, where the rules don't always work, and the formulas feel outdated, well, 2 plus 2 is a podcast where we want to question, challenge, and redefine what's possible. This podcast brings together voices that have disrupted the status quo to succeed. We call them the innovators and the leaders. It's not about being rebellious for the sake of it. It's about unlocking new paths in work and in life by asking the right question and exploring different perspectives. Us three here, we are your hosts. My name is Paul. With me are both.
My name is Lauren. Nice to meet you all.
My name is
And we
Luke.
have.
Great to meet you.
Okay, well, before we go into our podcast ourselves, we're just going to do a brief intro on the three of us. Lauren, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I am Lauren Dempsey. I'm a Workday integration architect. I've been in the Workday ecosystem for the past 10 years. I've kind of seen all the glories of what Workday can do across all the domains. So that's the kind of the nerdy stuff out of the way. But outside of life, I'm a little bit of a cabaret performer, and I like to bring life to the stage.
Well, I guess the math didn't definitely math in your life's equation, did it? And you had to create your own status quo.
I definitely did. I resigned from my last job recently without having a job to go to, and that in itself didn't really add up, but it worked out in the end.
Amazing. I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy getting to know you. Luke, yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Luke Johnson. I am a principal recruitment consultant and I have been in the Workday ecosystem for around 3 years now. Experienced recruiter in work, here to try and work with clients and candidates to find them the best opportunities. Outside of the work, I am a failed footballer, avid golfer, and potential part-time gardener.
Well, I don't agree with any of those, especially the football. But my name's Paul. I'm 46, father of two. Been married for probably 15 years. My wife will say that she's been 15 years in a sentence, but I don't agree with her. I think she got lucky. At work, I've always wanted to challenge the status quo um, and try to do what people told me that wasn't possible for me to do. And so we created Core Team 6 years ago, and now we're on the way of growing that. But over the next few years, there's going to be a whole load of new challenges. And over the last 5 years, I would say I've been on one of the most steepest learning curves I've ever been on. So it's exciting to finally start this podcast and start to talk to you guys about some of the thoughts that are going through our heads and how we've been working to create what we've created. So to start off today, I've got a quick question for you guys. And we're all going to try to answer it. Today, we're going to be just doing a little bit of an intro on the podcast itself. So I'm going to just ask a question to you two, which we can all answer. I guess people are going to be asking the math ain't mathing. Well, to give people an idea of what to think about when they think about this topic, what does it mean to you? How is the math not mathing in your life, and what does that mean to you? If we start with who wants to give it a first go.
I can go. For me, like I previously said, I recently resigned from my corporate job without actually having a job to go to, which some would say is a very risky thing to do. But I kind of had faith within myself that I knew I would find another job, and luck of the draw, I've ended up with in core team, working alongside Robbie in the team. So yeah, sometimes it just works out, and you sometimes just have to trust your gut, I always say.
Nice. Luke?
Yeah, I think if I bring it to work, I think certainly within the type of role that I operate in, it's one of those where you focus on numbers and you focus on KPIs and you focus on so many things, but there's so many different avenues to get there. You try one thing and it couldn't work. You take the path that you think will work and you still don't get there. And it seems to be the things that you didn't think about that end up being the ones that actually work and bring in the results. And I think that's the part where you never know which path to take. There's too many different paths to choose from. But ultimately, there isn't such thing as a wrong path. You have to walk down a path to try to figure out where you're going to go. And as long as you're walking forward, that's the main thing. Um, Outside of life, I mean, from gardening perspective, I recently put some grass seed down, did everything that I thought was right, and the grass seed didn't grow.
And what did you do?
Dug a hole and replaced it with some other turf, to be honest. So I took the easy way out on that one.
Then we hired a gardener.
That was
Well, look,
the smart thing.
the math ain't mathing. You know, early on in my life, my work career actually, I think I went to I was doing recruitment, and I went to a meeting with one of the big four. I was recruiting for them, and as I was sitting with the partner, I said to them, look, okay, your guys do the same sort of target, and he was saying to me, like, you guys bring in good revenue. I said, okay, well, what does somebody like me need to do to come and work for a big management consultancy? And he said, well, like, people like you have to have a degree, and people with your background just, won't get the job here because you don't have a degree. So that was the day I made up my mind that, okay, if these guys say I can't have a job in a management consultancy or one of the big four because I don't have a degree, well, I'm just going to set something up that competes with them. So that was the first, real big where all this mentality that I've been building for years sort of came into play to say, okay, I'm not going to let you tell what I can't do. Tell me what I can't do. But Lauren, I want to ask you something. When you were thinking of leaving the last job, obviously you didn't have anything prepared. Did you tell any of your family or friends that you were going to leave, or did you not share it with anyone?
I'm sure she'll kill me if she hears when she says this, but no, I didn't tell my family, I didn't tell my mum. Kind of.
Why is that? Well, what was the fear in telling them? Tell me.
You'd be saying in their own heads now you shouldn't be leaving the job without having another job to go to. But as I have learned in the last kind of 5 years of my own personal journey, sometimes you have to just take a chance at things. If you think it's a risk worth paying off, then it's certainly a risk worth paying off. But yes, so in terms of family, they didn't know. But from a friend's perspective, yes, there was a few friends that I kind of did tell and sort of had set my aspirations out of what I wanted to achieve. So yeah,
What about you, Luke? You were saying that at work it's about challenging the status quo. What was it at work that you did that challenged it?
I think it's like everything. I think you can quite easily fall into the rhythms, right? And I think that you start doing certain things and you go through these processes and they sometimes work and then sometimes they don't work. And that could be down to things in your control. That could be down to, how you feel, how you come across. That could be the market. It could be a change in the economy, right? And all of a sudden it doesn't work. And so, for a long period of time, not to use the catchphrase at all, but, I was putting two and two together and potentially I was getting four. But then at which point, all of a sudden, I seemed to be getting six and I couldn't figure out why. And I think it kind of made me think, well, what is the answer? Or do I need to ask other questions?
Yeah. Lauren, I did something similar to you when I set up Core Team. It was the day I bought my house, actually. I bought that. Well, I'd made the offer, and this particular day I got a phone call from the solicitor to say, you've completed, go and pick up your keys. So I went to the showroom, picked up the keys. We came outside the front door. I gave the keys to my wife. She was opening the door, and I made a quick phone call to my old employer and handed in my notice. And I also didn't tell anyone either. I was like, nope, not telling anyone, because every time I've sort of spoken to friends and family and said, yeah, I'm thinking of starting a business, it's always been, oh no, it's far too insecure. You need to have a good job and get a stay in your well-paid job and stick to that. And it was always like a fear of taking that leap. Why do you think it is that we're afraid of telling that? Sorry, go on.
There's a general fear because obviously we need to live, so we do, and obviously to live you have to earn money of some description. But I always say if you're enjoying what you're doing every day, you're not really working, so you're not because you actually enjoy it. And sometimes we all have to take that leap of faith to get what's right for us, you know. So there are some people like I know from my own experience, when I go back a couple of generations within Northern Ireland, it's typical that a lot of family people would have went to a job, been in a job for their entire life, and maybe did nothing else. Whereas nowadays, it's near enough become like a portfolio career because you're doing something. You might only be doing it for a few years, then you're moving on to something else. And I think as the times change, we're growing, we're developing, and we're doing much more than what we were able to used to. So specifically speaking from my own parents' generation and the generation before, they were of a generation where the job opportunities weren't as many as what we have now. You know, you go back 30, 40, 50 years, it was like you were a nurse or a doctor or a tradesperson, whereas now you've got jobs nearly in every sector you could think of, you know, so there's a lot more choice out there.
100%.
What about you, Luke? What do you think?
I think it's fear of other people's opinions. Like I think sometimes you build things up, don't you, in your head, and you want to, you have this way of thinking, and you kind of get to that point, and then you make that decision. And I think sometimes we want to protect ourselves from someone saying, "Oh, why have you done that?" And then it gets you questioning and thinking, well, actually, why have I done that? So I think sometimes with the fear of those things, and maybe not talking and telling people those changes, it's because we want to we've built ourselves up for so long probably to get to that point. We don't want someone to come in and question it because we've finally stood on that step, and then all of a sudden we'll be like, there's question marks now.
What are the challenges you guys feel that people face when they've got a challenge, when they've got to create their own equation, when they've got to create their own new methodology? I think I had a recent quote from Mr. Beast of all people. I think it was from him. He said, he said, the quote itself said, "You're only a psycho until it works, and then you're a genius."
I think there's a lot of people out there that sort of struggle with confidence a little bit. You know, people have that fear of what if something goes wrong? It's like, well, have you tried it out? No. Just try it out. What's the worst that can happen? You can always go and do something else, you know. I think, yeah, there's a lack of confidence out there, but there's also sometimes maybe a lack of all-rounded skills for some. You know, some people may have different difficulties when it comes to articulating things across, you know. So I'm always a believer you got to try something out first before actually rolling it out. Yeah.
I think from my side, I think the interesting one to throw back to you, Paul, because you took that step. I mean, you made that jump. You started a business, and it was at a time when you were buying a house, and you made that call on the day. And what was going through your head when you decided to make that call and call it quits and start something new on the day of buying a house?
You know, I think for me, it feeds back to like my life, my whole life. You know, a lot of people don't know about this, about me. I grew up in India, right? So I grew up in India for the first 9 or 10 years of my life. And it wasn't in a you know, what do you call it? It wasn't a high class or upper class area. You know, it was a rural town. You know, there was literally one high street, and you know, then it was literally the front row of houses was great, and then behind the houses was poverty. And I was brought up on a farm and an orchard, right? So, and I was the luckiest thing for me that happened was I was brought up by my grandfather, and he was a man that was born in a mud hut. And he became a doctor, and he became a politician, and he became actually one of the biggest politicians in India, in Punjab, you know, during his time in the 60s and 70s. So when I turned 18, 19, or when I wanted to start my business and I had some doubts, for me, it's quite easy to look back in my life and think there was a man involved in my life who went from a mud hut to having 4 kids, who he sent, or, you know, got educated to master's degrees, you know, educated himself to a PhD level, and, you know, And we're all settled here, and now I'm his grandson in the UK setting up my own business. And it's all because he had the vision and the strength to say, the mud hut's not enough for me. And I think, that then stemmed through into my sports when I was younger to then, I moved out of home when I was 18, for 12, 13 years from there. I supported myself, whether it was rough or tough or whether it was great. It didn't matter. I went through that. And I think when I had my first child at the age of 35, 36, and I held him in my hands, the only thing I could think of was I want to affect, I want, when my son talks to people about me, I want him to be proud. Right? I don't want anybody to say a bad word about me to my son. I want him to, when they talk about me to him, I want them to be proud. So I thought, okay, well, I've got to change to do that. I've got to change people's lives. And how can I do that? I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a billionaire of any sort. The only thing I have is skills of developing people and a passion of developing people. So for me, it was a no-brainer, to take the challenge. I had full belief in my skills as a salesperson to generate revenue. And that was it. It wasn't even a thought in my head that I can't do this. So the day I needed to do it, it was, today's the day, handed in my notice, started the company.
Bravo.
Love that.
Yes.
Well, you asked quite an in-depth question there, and I think as we can probably carry on going for a long time, and over the next 3 podcasts, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to be getting to know the hosts a little bit about why we're here, why we're doing this podcast, a little bit about our backgrounds. I know, Luke, you've got an interesting background. I'm really interested in how you got past the problems in football, and Lauren, obviously you had challenges of your own that I'm sure people would love to hear, and they will inspire hundreds of, if not thousands, if they hear your story. So we're going to be doing that. We're also going to be inviting guests and to speak with us. We are making this about getting the best out of people by introducing ourselves. We're going to talk to you about how we work with our colleagues, with our friends, in our personal life and our professional life to get to where we want to. Everybody has different goals, but you don't have to follow the status quo. Before we end this podcast, for the first time, I want to just recommend a book where we're talking about challenging the status quo and following your dream. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, a book that I read very, very early in my life. I won't tell you about what it's about to so spoil the ending for you. Up to you guys to read it and do it. But maybe if you guys do read it, let's maybe discuss it at one day. But is there anything that you two want to say to the listening audience about why we're here, or anything that you would like to finish off on for the first time?
As Paul has highlighted, we're here to really challenge the status quo, and I've a lot of life experience of just generally how I've gotten to where I am today. There's been a lot of challenges there, and I can't wait to just share more stories to sort of help inspire people follow in the similar career footsteps as I have, because I came from literally nothing to being quite a successful person in the tech industry.
Luke?
Yeah, I wish I had.
What are you hoping that people get from you?
Yeah, I wish I had as good of an answer as you two. And I hope on this podcast it doesn't show too many of my true colours in that sense. But no, certainly from my side, I think it's about looking at things through originally and initially, 3 people's eyes that have come from very different backgrounds and very different upbringings, and sharing stories in that regard. But I think it's then that deep dive, isn't it, into the world that we live in today and the problems that people face. It's a changing world, probably from when we were all kids and so forth. And, how do we tackle today? What is the right thing to do? Does 2 + 2 actually equal 5?
Nice. That's actually a really nice way to round it up. So thanks for that, Luke. I will talk about, what this means to me more in the next episode. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, we'll see you in the next 2 weeks. If not, we're still going to be here doing the math that doesn't add up.